Moana 2 has hit theaters, and you might be noticing that it's getting less than stellar reviews. Now, I knew this movie was going to disappoint, and I'll tell you why. Moana 2 is not your typical sequel. What I mean by that is that this was not a movie that was planned for years by Disney and intricately put together. This was a movie that was just rushed to release. Now, here's something interesting, and it will blow your mind. The announcement of this movie came at the beginning of February of 2024, and the final movie released in theaters in November of 2024. That is an incredibly quick turnaround from an announcement to the release, and not just a release of any movie, but a sequel to Moana. You think that Disney, just like what they're doing with like Toy Story 5, you think they would announce this years in advance, or at least a couple years, and try to build up hype for its eventual release. But it's a very odd thing to announce a movie at February, and a Moana movie at that, and then release it less than a year later at the end of the year in November. So clearly, this was not your typical movie schedule. There's no other way to put it. This film was rushed to release. Now, Moana 2 was originally meant to be a Disney Plus TV series, very much in the same vein as the Lion King TV series, Aladdin, Lilo and Stitch, Tarzan, and the rest of the Disney TV shows of the time. They were going to do the same thing with Moana, except Bob Iger, he found out that they were making a Disney Plus TV show, and he told a team that had already written the scripts and were already getting into animating the Moana TV show, he said to them, how about you take what you're making right now and turn it into a movie for theaters? So in other words, Moana 2 is basically all those TV show scripts stitched together, given better animation, and then thrown onto the big screen. Yeah. Moana 2 is the equivalent of a straight-to-video Disney sequel that released in theaters rather than where it belongs on Disney+. And this is a really low move from Disney. That would be like if Paramount took the Megamind movie that ended up being on Paramount Plus and they says, you know what? This movie looks cheaper, the script is clearly not meant to be on a feature quality, but it'll make a lot of money if we throw it in theaters, so you know what? Take that Megamind sequel that you're making for our streaming service, give it better animation, then throw it in theaters. That is the equivalent of what Disney just did. Although at least with Paramount, at least they kept Megamind 2 on streaming. They didn't try to cheat us by putting it in theaters. And I gotta say, Disney, that is so incredibly low. Not only is that low, but it is disgusting. It is so disgusting that they plan to trick families to come out of their homes and pay to see a Disney Plus show in theaters. Even if they gave the movie a bigger budget, the writing is still on a TV show level, it's not at the quality that it should be for a movie, and the pretty animation is not gonna make up for it. Now the big question is why? Why did Disney take such a cheap shot at making a sequel to one of their most beloved movies? Well, just think. Isn't it odd that they announced this movie at the beginning of February of 2024? That's because Disney were just reeling from their worst performance. I can almost guarantee you that at the beginning of the year, Disney looked back at their entire box office year of 2023 and said, we are in big trouble. We had flop after flop after flop after flop, and these weren't your small flops, these were big, massive flops. They were like, you know what, we need an instant hit. Because their stock prices were taking a hit, Disney's reputation was going down the toilet, so Bob Iger played it safe and rushed a sequel out. And it seems to be a crappy sequel based on what everyone else is saying. I mean, they rushed this so much that they weren't even able to get Lin-Manuel Miranda back to write the songs, even though the songs were one of the biggest draws in the first movie. And what's bad about this is that if they took their time, they undoubtedly would have gotten him back, but they rushed it, so they didn't. And do you know how much they rushed it? This production was so rushed, in fact, that it was even a question if they would be able to get Dwayne Johnson back as Maui and the voice of Moana, because they were hiring them and scrambling to put this movie together at the last second. Because when this movie was originally a TV series, they were going to hire cheaper voice actors that sounded close enough to Dwayne Johnson and Moana, so they could adequately fill their roles, but they had to scramble and rush in order to get everything back once they said they were going to make it a movie. So much so that they were able to get the two lead actors back, but they weren't able to get Lin-Manuel Miranda back. So I wouldn't be surprised if Bob Iger actually came to the studio at January of the new year and then said, so what do we got for this year? 2023 was a bust, what have we got for 2024? And then they looked at the Thanksgiving release date, which we have just passed right now, and he was like, we got nothing coming out on Thanksgiving, what should we do? We need to put something there. And clearly they didn't have anything, so what he did was looked over to their TV shows department and says, hey you, that TV show over there, just scramble it together and make a movie. I bet you that's what happened. On January, that's what he did, and then at the beginning of February, they announced it to everyone. So that's how the movie went from being what was at the beginning of the year just something that was prepared to be a TV show on Disney+, which by the end of the year had to quickly turn around to becoming a movie-level production. And it's because of that, at the beginning of the year when this announcement came out, I knew Moana 2 was going to not be a good film. Because its foundation was rushed, it was not made with the intentions of having writing on par with a feature movie. It was written purely as a TV show for the little kids to watch and enjoy. Now, scrambling to make a project like this so quickly, that made me think of one thing, beside the fact that I knew the movie wasn't going to be good. It made me think of the animators. Those poor animators. They had to deliver feature quality animation in about a year to a year and a half tops. Usually it takes years to create an animated movie, but these animators, these poor animators, they really were pushed to get this movie out by November from the beginning of the year. That is no time to get a movie out, so I am so impressed at the quality of the work they've done just by the trailer footage I've looked at, because I think the animation doesn't look as good as what I just recently watched with the first Moana. I just recently watched it for the very first time, and I documented my journey of watching the movie for the first time, which you can check out, and the animation really did blow me away. I will say the animation holds up really quite well so far, like some beautiful looking animation, and the movie's only just started. Seriously, this animation is beautiful. This is blowing me away more than the animation for Inside Out 2. Like, seriously. But the animation in the second movie doesn't really look that much better. If anything, I think it doesn't look as good. I'll report back to you once I see the movie, which by the time you're watching this video, I should have already seen the film. But that's not a good sign from Disney, and these poor animators. Don't be surprised if we hear stories of animators at Disney being overworked and underpaid, because I am almost certain that's what happened, that they were given no breaks, no holidays. They had to basically work day in, day out, even on weekends, to basically just get this movie done by the deadline, which was Thanksgiving of this year. And yeah, that is not good. I really do hope Disney pay them what they're worth, but we know Disney are not going to. All they cared about was getting this movie out by the release date. The animation might look good, but everything else will look like a straight-to-video Disney sequel. So that's why Moana 2 is a bad sequel. Corporate greed. And it shows how they will force those at a lower status to create something that will make tons of money, and then the higher-ups won't share it with them. And that really is a shame, because it's said that Moana, based on its opening weekend box office predictions, will make somewhere about $400 to $500 million worldwide just on its opening weekend. So this was a cheap move, but Disney are gonna get their money, which is unfortunate because I don't like to see behavior like this rewarded or even encouraged. And you know that if Disney saw that this was a big success, they'll most likely try to do this again in the future at some point. That means worst quality movies for us, and even further terrible treatment of their animators and employees. So, you wanted to know the unbelievable reason why Moana 2 is a bad movie, and well, you found out. It is basically a Moana TV show that was given a bigger budget and then put into theaters. Before I go, please do give this video a thumbs up and click the subscribe button if you liked it, and I do make all of these videos by myself, so if you enjoy what I do, please do support me on Patreon, as it will help keep the channel going, and you will get tons of additional content for your patronage and support. So let me know, what do you think of this whole situation? Did you like Moana 2, or were you onto the fact that this felt like a very cheap and thrown together movie? Be sure to let me know in the comments below. Thank you very much for watching everyone, and stay tuned for my Moana 1 vs Moana 2 versus video, where I will further dissect the differences between the two films. And in the meantime, be sure to check out my first viewing of the first Moana movie. Thank you very much for watching everyone, I really appreciate it. I am gonna go off and watch Moana 2, and then I will see all of you very soon after. Take care.